Erev Tov, everyone. Erev Tov. It is Monday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora. This is the Maimon Beit Knesset. Therefore, it must be Zeyde's Story Corner. Yeah, that's right, Zeyde's Story Corner. And tonight we're going to continue on with the cliffhanger. Yeah, the cliffhanger from last week, the Fairy Princess of Agetz. Let's see who we have in the chat room, shall we? Let's see, uh, Ronald, Yehuda, and Simcha, and Donald, and Regina, so far. Yeah, so far. And we want to say a special hello to my son, Nawson, who is at home recovering from COVID and doing better today. Very happy for that. Okay, so again, summer is coming. Yeah, summer is coming. Yes, that's true. And as we usually do after Memorial Day, or right there, we take a break. We take a vacation for the summer and spend some time going fishing and visiting and stuff like that. So we've got this show, yeah, and next show, yeah, this show and next show, and then we will be off for the summer, and of course we'll be kind of posting up things as we go along during the summer, letting you know what we're all up to and so on. So anyway, we should probably get back to our story. Yes, we should. Okay, so let me go ahead and get you on your camera. There I am. Okay. It's a little off center. Or I'm a little off center. I'm not sure which one it is. Okay, that's better. Okay. So, to bring you up to date, we had a story of the Fairy Princess of Agetz. And if you remember from last week, that the story was about a rich man, Mar Salmon, and his son, Bar Salmon. And Mar Salmon passed away, and he was a very rich man. And everything went to his son, Bar Salmon, and with the condition that he never leave that land, never set sail. So after Mar Salmon's departure, shall we say, that a ship came into the harbor and said that Mar Salmon had great riches across the sea and that they were left to his son, and if his son didn't come and claim them, then it would be forfeit. So he said he would go, and the next thing he knows, he gets marooned on a desert with all these demons and everything, and he ends up in the land of Asmodone, and he's allowed to live there because of the efforts of the rabbi there, but he can never leave. And he becomes a trusted servant of the king of the demons. And the king of the demons goes on to fight a war with some other demons. And he gives him the keys to the castle. He says he can go into any rooms that he wants, except for the one which there is no key. So Bar Salmon does what he shouldn't do. He goes in, and he finds a beautiful woman there, and she is the demon king's daughter, and the only way he can save his life is to promise to marry her, and that is where we pick up the story for tonight. Okay, so the wedding took place with much ceremony. The princess was attended by 1,000 fairy bridesmaids, and the whole city was brilliantly decorated and illuminated until Bar Salmon was almost blinded by the dazzling spectacle. The rabbi performed the marriage ceremony, and Bar Salmon had to swear an oath by word of mouth and in writing that he loved the princess and would never desert her. He was given a beautiful palace full of jewels as a dowry, and the wedding festival lasted 6 months. 6 months. That is a long party. That really is a long party. Anyway, all the fairies and demons invited them in turn. They had to attend banquets and parties and dances in grottos and caves and in the depths of the fairy fountains in the square. Never before in Ergetz had there been such elaborate rejoicing. 6 months worth, that is. Okay. Chapter 3. Oh, I see Richard the Marshal has joined us. And Veronica. Okay. Filling up the house there. Yeah, we are. Yeah. Okay, so, again, Chapter 3. Some years rolled by, and still Bar Salmon thought of his native land. One day the princess found him weeping quietly. "Why art thou sad, husband mine?" she asked. "Dost thou no longer love me, and am I not beautiful now?" "No, it is not that," he said, but for a long time he refused to say more. At last he confessed that he had an intense longing to see his home again. "But thou art bound to me by oath," said the princess. "I know," replied Bar Salmon, "and I shall not break it." Of course, he's broken 2 so far, 2 that we can count. "Permit me to visit my home for a brief while, and I will return and prove myself more devoted to thee than ever." On these conditions, the princess agreed that he should take leave for a whole year. A big black demon flew swiftly with him to his native city. No sooner had Bar Salmon placed his feet on the ground that he determined not to return to the land of Ergetz. 3 times now. "Tell the royal mistress," he said to the demon, "that I shall never return to her." He tore his clothes to make himself look poor, but his wife was overjoyed to see him. She had mourned him as dead. He did not tell of his adventures, but merely said he had been shipwrecked and had worked his way back as a poor sailor. He was delighted to be among human beings again, to hear his own language, and to see solid buildings that did not appear and disappear just when they pleased. And as the days passed, he began to think his adventures in fairyland were but a dream. Meanwhile, the princess waited patiently until the year was ended. Then she sent the big black demon to fly Bar Salmon back. "You gonna be okay?" "Yeah, I'll be okay." Yeah, it's allergy time in Michigan. Okay, anyway, if you're done coughing now, we can get on with the story. Okay, I'm done. Okay. So, meanwhile, the princess waited patiently until the year was ended. Then she sent the big black demon to bring Bar Salmon back. Bar Salmon met the messenger one night while he was walking alone in his garden. "I have come to take you back," said the demon. Bar Salmon was startled. He had forgotten that the year was up. He felt that he was lost, but as the demon did not seize him by force, he saw that there was a possibility of escape. "Return and tell thy mistress I refuse," he said. "I will take thee by force," said the demon. "Thou canst not," Bar Solomon said, "for I am the son-in-law of the king." The demon was helpless and returned to Egetz alone. King Asmodee was very angry, but the princess counseled patience. "I will devise means to bring my husband back," she said. "I will send other messengers." Thus it was that Bar Solomon found a troop of beautiful fairies in the garden the next evening. They tried their utmost to induce him to return with them, but he would not listen. Every day, different messengers came, big, ugly demons who threatened, pretty fairies who tried to coax him, and troublesome spirits and goblins who only annoyed him. Bar Solomon could not move without encountering messengers from the princess in all manner of queer places. Nobody else could see them, and often he was heard talking to invisible people. His friends began to regard him as strange in his behavior. King Asmodee grew angrier every day, and he threatened to go for Bar Solomon himself. "Nay, I will go," said the princess. "It will be impossible for my husband to resist me." She selected a large number of attendants, and the swift flight of the princess and her retinue through the air caused a violent storm to rage over the lands they crossed. Like a thick black cloud, cow? Yeah, I was kind of wondering that myself. A thick black cow swooped. That doesn't usually happen. Anyway, like a thick black cloud, they swooped down on the land where Bar Solomon dwelt, and their weird cries seemed like the wild shrieking of a mighty hurricane. Down they swept in a tremendous storm, such as the city had never known. Then, as quickly as it came, the storm ceased, and the people who had fled into their homes ventured forth again. The little son of Bar Solomon went out into the garden, but quickly rushed back into the house. "Father, come forth and see," he cried. "The garden is full of strange creatures brought by this storm." All manner of creeping, crawling things had invaded the garden. Lizards, toads, and myriads of insects. The trees and shrubs, the paths are covered, and some shine in the twilight like tiny lanterns. Bar Solomon went out into the garden, but he did not see toads and lizards. What he beheld was a vast array of demons and goblins and sprites, and in a rose bush the princess, his wife, shining like a star, surrounded by her attendant fairies. She stretched forth her arms to him. "Husband mine," she pleaded, "I have come to implore thee to return to the land of Egetz with me. Sadly, I have missed thee. Long have I waited for thy coming. and difficult has it been to appease my father's anger. Come, husband mine, return with me. A great welcome awaits thee. I will not return, said Barsalmon. Kill him, shrieked the demons as they surrounded him, gesticulating fiercely. Nay, harm him not, commanded the princess. Think well, Barsalmon, ere you answer again. The sun has set and night is upon us. Think well until sunrise. Come to me, return, and all shall be well. Refuse, and thou shalt be dealt with as though thou hast merited. Think well before the sunrise. And what will happen at sunrise if I refuse? Asked Barsalmon. Thou shalt see, returned the princess. Bethink thee well, and remember, I await thee here until the sunrise. I have answered. I defy thee, said Barsalmon, and he went indoors. Night passed with strange, mournful music in the garden, and the sun rose in its glory and spread its golden beams over all the city. And with the coming of the light, more strange sounds awoke the people of the city. A wondrous sight met their gaze in the marketplace. It was filled with hundreds upon hundreds of the queerest creatures they had ever seen. Goblins and brownies, demons and fairies. Dainty little elves ran about the square to the delight of the children, and quaint sprites clambered up the lampposts and squatted on the gables of the council house. On the steps of that building was a glittering array of fairies and attendant genii, and in their midst stood the princess, a dazzling vision, radiant as the dawn. The mayor of the city knew not what to do. He put on his chain of office and made a long speech of welcome to the princess. Thank you for your cordial welcome, said the princess in reply, and you, the mayor, and ye, the good people of this city of mortals, hearken unto me. I am the princess of the fairyland of Ergetz, where my father Asmodee rules as king. There is one among ye who is my husband. Who is he? The crowd asked in astonishment. Barsalmon is his name, replied the princess, and to him I am bound by vows that may not be broken. Upon hundreds Okay, so this thing is jumping all over the place. Let's see if we can get this back here. Okay, okay, there it is. Barsalmon is his name, replied the princess, and to him I am bound by vows that may not be broken. 'Tis false, cried Barsalmon from the crowd. 'Tis true. Behold our son, answered the princess, and there stepped forward a dainty elfin boy whose face was the image of Barsalmon. I ask of you mortals of the city, the princess continued, but one thing, justice. The same justice which we in the land of Ergetz did give unto Barsalmon when, after breaking his oath unto his father, he set sail for a foreign land and was delivered into our hands. we spared his life. We granted his petition for a new trial. I but ask that ye should grant me the same petition. Hear me in your court of justice. Thy request is but reasonable, princess, said the mayor. It shall not be said that strangers here are refused justice. Bar-Solomon, follow me. He led the way into the chamber of justice, and the magistrates of the city heard all the princess and her witnesses, among whom was the rabbi, and also all that Bar-Solomon had to say. "'Tis plain," said the mayor, delivering judgment, "that Her Royal Highness, the Princess of the fairy land of Ergetz, has spoken that which is true. But Bar-Solomon has in this city wife and child, to whom he is bound by ties that may not be broken. Bar-Solomon must divorce the princess and return unto her the dowry received by him on their marriage. If such be your law, I am content," said the princess. "What sayest thou, Bar-Solomon?" asked the mayor. "Oh, I'm content," he answered gruffly. "I agree to anything that will rid me of the demon princess." The princess flushed crimson with shame and rage at these cruel words. "These words I have not deserved," she exclaimed proudly. "I have loved thee and have been faithful unto thee, Bar-Solomon. I accept the decree of your laws and shall return to the land of Ergetz as a widow. I ask not for your pity. I ask but for that which is my right, one last kiss." "Very well," said Bar-Solomon, still more gruffly. "Anything to have done with thee." The princess stepped proudly forward to him and kissed him on the lips. Bar-Solomon turned deadly pale and would have fallen had not his friends caught him. "Take thy punishment for all thy sins," cried the princess haughtily, "for thou hast broken thy vows and thy false promises, thy perjury to thy God, to thy father, and to my father, and to me." As she spoke, Bar-Solomon fell dead at her feet. At a sign from the princess, her retinue of fairies and demons flew out of the building and up into the air with their royal mistress in their midst and vanished. And there is a lesson there. Never marry a demon. Pretty easy, huh? Okay. So, we are about at our halfway point, so we are going to go ahead and take our break here. And when we return, we will have the story of the Higgledy-Piggledy Palace. So, please stay tuned. We will be back in 6.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. The show starts in 3 minutes. The show starts in 2 minutes. The show starts in 1 minute. And now, on with the show.
And we are back. Okay. So now we go on with our story of the Higgledy-Piggledy Palace. That's a tongue twister. Yeah, it sounds like it. Okay. So, Sarah, the wife of the patriarch Abraham, and the great mother of the Jewish people, was the most beautiful woman who ever lived. Everybody who saw her marveled at the dazzling radiance of her countenance. They stood spellbound before the glorious light that shone in her eyes and the wondrous clearness of her complexion. This greatly troubled Abraham when he fled from Canaan to Mitzrayim. It was disconcerting to have crowds of travelers gazing at his wife as if she were something more than human. Besides, he feared the Egyptians would seize Sarah for the king's harem. So, after much meditation, he concealed his wife in a big box. When he arrived in the Egyptian frontier, the customs official asked him what it contained. "Barley," he replied. "You say that because the duty on barley is the lowest," they said. "The box must surely be packed with wheat." "I will pay the duty on wheat," said Abraham, who was most anxious they should not open the box. The officials were surprised, for, as a rule, people endeavored to avoid paying the duties. "If you are so ready to pay the higher tax," they said, "the box must contain something of greater value. Perhaps it contains spices." Abraham intimated his readiness to pay the duty on spices. "Oh-ho," laughed the officials. "There is a strange person." Lebriot. Well, thank you. Don't mention it. "Here is a strange person ready to pay heavy dues. He must be anxious to conceal something, gold perchance." "I will pay the duty on gold," said Abraham quietly. The officers were now completely bewildered. "Our highest duty," said their chief, "is on precious stones, and since you decline to open the box, we must demand the tax on the costliest gems." "I will pay it," said Abraham simply. "You going to be okay?" "Yeah, I'm going to be okay, yes." The officers could not understand this at all, and after consulting among themselves, they decided that the box must be opened. You good now? I think so. Okay, the officers could not understand this at all. After consulting among themselves, they decided that the box must be opened. "It may contain something highly dangerous," they argued. Abraham protested, but he was arrested by the guards and the box was forced open. When Sarah was revealed, the officials stepped back in amazement and admiration. "Indeed, a rare jewel," said the chief. It was immediately decided to send Sarah to the king. When Pharaoh beheld her, he was enraptured. She was simply dressed in the garments of a peasant woman, with no adornment and no jewels, and yet the king thought he had never seen a woman so entrancingly beautiful. When he saw Abraham, however, his brow clouded. "Who is this man?" he demanded of Sarah. Fearing that he might be imprisoned or even put to death if she acknowledged him as her husband, Sarah replied that he was her brother. Pharaoh felt relieved. He smiled on Abraham and greeted him pleasantly. "Thy sister is exceedingly fair to gaze upon," he said, "and comely of form. She hath bewitched me by her matchless charm. She shall become the favorite of my harem. I will recompense thee well for thy loss of her. Thou shalt be loaded with gifts." Abraham was too wise to betray the anger that surged in his heart. "Courage, my beloved," he whispered to Sarah. The good God will not forsake us." He made a pretense of agreeing to Pharaoh's suggestion, and the chief steward of the king gave him an abundant store of gold and silver and jewels, also sheep and oxen and camels. Abraham was conducted to a beautiful palace where many slaves attended him and bowed before him. For one on whom the monarch has showered favors was a great man in the land. Left alone, Abraham began to pray most devoutly. Meanwhile, Sarah was led into a gorgeous apartment where the queen's own attendants were ordered to array her in the richest of the royal garments. Then she was brought before Pharaoh, who dismissed all the attendants. "I desired to be alone with thee," said the king to Sarah. "I have much to say to thee, and I long to feast my eyes on those features of beauty rare." But Sarah shrank from him. To her, he appeared ugly and loathsome. His smile was a vicious leer, and his voice sounded like a harsh croak. "Fear not," he said, trying to speak tenderly and kindly. "I will do thee no harm. Nay, I will load thee with honors. I will grant any request that thou makest." "Then let me go hence," said Sarah quickly. "I desire naught but that I shouldest be permitted to depart with my brother." "Thou jestest," said Pharaoh. "That cannot be. I will make thee queen," he cried passionately, and he made a move towards her. "Stop," cried Sarah. "If thou approachest one step nearer—" Pharaoh interrupted with a laugh. To threaten a king was so funny that he could not refrain from a hoarse cackle. But Sarah had become suddenly silent. She was looking not at him, but behind him. Pharaoh turned, but observed nothing. He could not see what Sarah saw. A figure, a sprite clutching a big stick. "Come," said the king, "be not foolish. I cannot be angry with a creature so fair as thou art. But it is not meet, nay, It is not wise to utter threats to one who wears a crown. Sarah made no reply. She was no longer afraid. She knew that her prayers and those of Abraham had been answered, and that no harm would befall her. Pharaoh mistook her silence and advanced towards her. As he did so, however, he felt a tremendous blow on his head. He was stunned for a moment. On recovering himself, he looked all around the room but could see nothing. Sarah continued to stand motionless. "Strange," muttered Pharaoh. I thought someone had entered the room." Again he moved towards Sarah, and once more he received a staggering blow, this time on the shoulder. It was only by great effort of will that he did not cry out in pain. He concluded he must have been seized by some sudden illness. But after a moment he felt better and bravely tried to smile at Sarah. I thought of something most important," he said, attempting to offer some explanation for nearly toppling over in an undignified manner. He stood nearer to Sarah and began to raise his hand to touch her. "If thou layest but a finger on me, it will be at thy peril," exclaimed Sarah, her eyes flashing angrily. "Pshaw!" he cried, losing patience, and he raised his hand. This time the cudgel of the sprite, invisible to Pharaoh, did not strike him. It came down gently and rested lightly on the king's outstretched arm, and Pharaoh could not move it. He grew pale and trembled. "Art thou a witch?" he gasped at last. Sarah was so angry when she heard this insult that she flashed a signal with her eyes to the sprite, and the latter plied his cudgel lustily about the king's head and shoulders, making the monarch break out in the most unkingly howls of pain. Thy pardon, I crave," he managed to scream. "I mean not what I said. I am ill, very ill. My body aches. My arm is paralyzed." The cudgeling ceased, and Pharaoh was able to move his arm. He writhed in agony, for he was bruised all over. He rushed hastily away, saying he would return on the morrow. Sarah found herself locked in, but she was not again disturbed. Pharaoh, however, had further adventures. The sprite was in a merry mood and had a night's entertainment at the king's expense. No sooner did the king lie down upon his bed than the sprite tilted it and sent him sprawling on the floor. Whenever Pharaoh tried to lie down, this same thing happened. He went from one room to another, but all efforts at rest were unavailing. Every bed rejected him, even his chair and couch did the same. Although when he commanded others to lie down, they did so quite comfortably. He tried lying down with one of his attendants, but while the latter was able to remain undisturbed, Pharaoh found himself bodily lifted, stood upon his head, spun around, and then rolled over on the ground. His physicians could provide no remedy. His magicians, hastily summoned from their own slumbers, could afford no explanation. And Paro spent a terrible night wandering from room to room and up and down the corridors, where the corners seemed to go out of their way to bump against him, and the stairs seemed to go down when he wanted to walk up, and vice versa. Such a higgledy-piggledy palace was never seen. Worse still, with the first streak of dawn, he noticed that he was smitten with leprosy. Hastily sent for Abraham and said, "Who and what thou art, I know not. Thou and thy sister have brought a plague upon me. I desire to make her my queen, but now she says, I say to you, rid me of this leprosy, and get thee hence with thy sister. I will bestow riches on thee, but get ye gone, and speedily." With a magic jewel which he wore on his breast, Abraham restored Paro to health, and then departed with Sarah. These final words he said to Paro: "Sarah is not my sister, but my wife. I give thee this warning. Should thy descendants at any time seek to persecute our descendants, then will our God, he, the one God of the universe, surely punish the king with plague again." And many years afterwards, as you read in the Bible, the prediction came true. And there you go. Good story, huh? Good story, huh? Yeah, that was a good story. Even with all the coughing. Yeah, I'm sorry. Even with all the coughing. Yeah. Okay, so we have another story. This one. The Red Slipper, this one is called. This one might sound a little familiar. So, let's go. Rosy Red was a sweet little girl with beautiful blue eyes, soft pink cheeks, and glorious ruddy gold hair of the tinge that artists love to paint. Her mother died the day she was born, but her grandmother looked after her with such tender care that Rosy Red regarded her as her mother. She was very happy. All day long she sang as she tripped gaily about the house or the woods that surrounded it. And so melodious was her voice that the birds gathered in the trees to listen to her and to encourage her to continue by dainty chirping whenever she ceased. Merrily, Rosy Red performed all the little duties her grandmother called upon her to do. And on festivals, she was allowed to wear a delightful pair of red leather slippers her father gifted to her on her first birthday. Now, although neither she nor her father knew it, they were magic slippers, which grew larger as her feet grew. Rosy Red was an only child, and so did not know that slippers do not usually grow. Her grandmother knew the secret of the slippers, but she did not tell, and her father had become too moody and too deeply absorbed in his own thoughts and affairs to notice anything. One day, Rosy Red remembered it only too sadly. She returned from the woods to find her grandmother gone and 3 strange women in the house. She stopped suddenly in the midst of her singing, and her cheeks turned pale, for she did not like the appearance of the strangers. "Who are you?" she asked. "I am your new mother," answered the eldest of the 3, "and these are my daughters, your 2 new sisters." Rosy Red trembled with fear. They were all 3 so ugly, and she began to cry. Her new sister scolded her for that, and would have beaten her had not her father appeared. He spoke kindly, telling her that he had married again, because he was lonely, and that her stepmother and stepsisters would be good to her. But Rosy Red knew different. She hastened away to her own little room and hid her slippers, which she was very proud. "They have turned my dear granny out of doors. They will take from me my beautiful slippers," she sobbed. After that, Rosy Red sang no more. She became a somber girl and a drudge. The birds could not understand. They followed her through the woods, but she was silent, as if she had been stricken dumb, and her eyes always seemed eager to be shedding tears. Also, she was too busy to notice her feathered friends. She had to collect firewood for the home, to draw water from the well, to struggle along with the heavy bucket whose weight made her arms and her back ache with pain. Sometimes, too, her white arms were scarred with bruises, for her cruel and selfish stepsisters did not hesitate to beat her. Often they went out to parties or to dances, and on these occasions she had to act as their maid and help them dress. Rosy Red did not mind. She was only happy when they were out of the house. Only then did she sing softly to herself, and the birds came to listen. Thus, many unhappy years passed away. Once, when her father was away from home, her stepsisters went off to a wedding dance. They told her not to forget to draw water from the well, and warned her that if she forgot, as she did the last time, they would beat her without mercy when they returned. So Rosy Red tired though she was, went out into the darkness to draw water. She lowered the bucket, but the cord broke, and the pail fell into the bottom of the well. She ran back home for a long stick with a hook at the end of it to recover the bucket. And as she put it into the water, she sang, "Swing and sweep till all does cling, and to the surface safely bring." Now, it so happened that a sleeping jinn dwelt at the bottom of the well. He could only be awakened by a spell, and although Rosy Red did not know it, the words she uttered, which she had once heard her granny use, were the spell. The jinn awoke, and he was so delighted with the sweet voice that he promptly decided to help the girl whom he saw peering down into the water. He fastened the bucket to the stick, and taking some jewels from a treasure of which he was the guardian, he put them inside. "Oh, how beautiful!" cried Rosy Red when she saw the glittering gems. They are ever so much nicer than those my sister put on to go to the ball." Then she sat thinking for a while, and a bright idea came to her head. "I will give these jewels to my sisters," she said. "Perhaps they will be kinder to me." She waited impatiently until the sisters returned from the dance and immediately told them. For a moment they were too dazed to speak when they saw the sparkling precious stones. Then they looked meaningly at one another and asked how she came by them. Rosie told them of the words she had sung. "Ah, we thought so," said the sisters, to her horror. "The jewels are ours. We hid them in the well for safety. You have stolen them." In vain Rosie Red protested. Her sisters would not listen. They beat her severely, told her to hurry off to bed, and then snatched the bucket. They hurried off to the well. They lowered the bucket and sang the words that Rosie Red had sung. At least, they thought they sang, but their voices were harsh. The sleeping Jinn awoke again, but he did not like the croaking sound made by the sisters. And that, my friends, is where we are going to pause for tonight. Again, another cliffhanger just for Donald. Okay. Don't forget, tomorrow night is the Rabbis Discuss. I guess you guys are going to discuss the Bahir again, aren't you? Yes, we are. We're going to discuss the Bahir. This will be the 10th of the Bahir lessons. And okay, and then on Wednesday will be the Torah study, and this will be the Parsha Bamidbar this week. And then on Friday night is Kabbalat and Mariv Shabbat service at 8 p.m., all at 8 p.m., except for Shabbat morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, which will be Shachrit and Musaf. And then next week, last week, we'll be back for Zeyde Story Corner right here at 8 p.m. So please, everybody come, and we will see you next time. And until then, we shall say, Laila Tov.